Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of HeChangedIt. My name is Mike Chisholm. As always, I am excited to be here. I'm not blowing smoke when I say that I'm excited to be here. This is my favorite time of the week, is doing these podcasts, having these conversations with these amazing people about subjects that are meant to benefit and will benefit somebody out there. Every single podcast we have done, somebody has connected to it, sometimes multiple people, multitudes of people, and getting this information out there, talking about men's performance in the 2020s, be it mental performance, be it physical performance, be it whatever that is, relationship performance, all of these things, emotional performance, all these things are needing to grow and needing to be things that we access together and talk about together. And that's what HeChangedIt is all about, providing a platform where men can go. They can go there anonymously and just figure some shit out. That's what HeChangedIt's all about. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please hit that button. If you haven't shared us, please hit that button too. Please spread the word a little bit for us. We would really appreciate that. And if you haven't downloaded the app, what the heck are you waiting for? Download the HeChangedIt app in the iOS store or the Google store. Download it to the phone, sign up. Already the app is in good shape. When you look at the roadmap of where this app is going, oh my goodness, we are going to change the world, and we are so excited about that. Part of changing the world is having conversations with people who are doing just that. They're going out there, they're using their experiences, they're learning using the things that they've learned, and trying to make the world a better place, whether it's in their personal situation or it's a broader situation where they're impacting the people around them, maybe locally or even bigger than that. The gentleman we're about to speak to today has done that over the course of decades. And he has done that in many, many ways. He has done it in the private sector, in the business world. He has worked for, I believe it's one of, if not the largest telecommunications company in Canada for decades. He is but not only that, he ain't just some pencil pusher. We're talking about a guy who's a coach as well, and not talking about a sports coach, but a business coach and lifestyle coach and coach in so many different ways. And then he has dovetailed that because of personal situations and in a broader, massive need, has taken his life into the direction of becoming an advocate. And we've had a few advocates on here over the past few weeks. We've talked about an organization called Mom Stop the Harm. The way that we were connected with Ron is through that organization. And you want to talk about an onion with layers. Ron Merk is a guy who's got a lot of layers to him. Ron, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be a guest on heCast today.
Hey, Mike, it's a pleasure for me, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Oh man, me too. You've done a lot of stuff in your life. You've been everything from an ambulance attendant to I think you're a firefighter, and then you made it pretty big in business.
Yeah, I was telling you earlier, like my wife kids me about this, but she says I've done everything a little boy dreams of doing, and she's right. I think I have pretty well done just about everything there is,
including aspirations. Like a lot of guys, they've got, I think about like career aspirations. Well, you've made it really, really high. You made it really high in TELUS, and then president of a chamber of commerce. Like you've gone, really around the bend and back again with your life experiences.
Yeah, TELUS was very good to me. It was a company that I worked for more than 35 years. Gave me the opportunity to do a lot of things in a lot of areas. And I learned a lot of things. The last 10 years with TELUS, I was what they used to call the culture manager for the division I operated with. And my job was to change the culture we were all working in, which was kind of an interesting challenge.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about that when it comes to, we had a few weeks ago, we had somebody who owns an HR company on here and as a guest. And I mean, there are so many things that we take for granted when we're in a corporate culture, a corporate environment, I should say, and culture. Like at the end of the day, things don't change and evolve. Well, I mean, it happens really either leadership makes it happen, or the culture shifts around and then the culture forces it to happen. You obviously were in a situation where, you had to, I love the Wayne Gretzky quote, you don't go where the puck is, you go where the puck is going. When you talk about culture shifting in a corporate environment like that, you really had to be forward thinking and knowing where the puck was going in this last, that last 10 years, culture in the work environment shifted monumentally.
Yeah, and that all that experience in TELUS, it set me up for what I'm doing now with advocating work. But you're absolutely right. Culture is about changing. Culture is usually driven because there's massive changes in the industry you're in, and you either change or you cease to exist.
Yeah,
and TELUS, when TELUS came to be. We combined BC Tel together with TELUS, and we went national across Canada.
Yeah.
There was tremendous cultural upheaval within those corporations when we put them together.
Yeah.
And it meant we had really great senior leaders in TELUS, which recognized that in order to do that, we had to pay attention to the culture and actually make some direct changes. And that was, in essence, my job at the time.
And it's interesting how that's your you pay your bills during the day and you work on your fortune at night, or you work on your side hustle at night or whatever. But, one fed the other. I think about the coaching practice you have. And I mean, you basically got to blueprint what was necessary for you to be able to go and talk to other organizations or groups to help them with these issues that they're facing.
That's exactly right, Mike. Not only was I coaching on an individual one-on-one basis with people, male, female, but I was also doing team coaching, which to me is even more interesting because now you're talking about the dynamics of many people in the same room.
Yeah.
And you're trying to move them. Usually I was there because something was dysfunctional, and their senior manager knew that they needed to move the team to, a better view on what was going on.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about 10 or 15 or 20 people in a room, the dynamics are pretty interesting. And if you're going to make a shift in what they're up to, it can be very challenging. Lots of fun too.
Well, and I mean, the variables, and we've talked a little bit about this off camera, but the variables of 15 different people in a room, I mean, they're all bringing strengths, they're all bringing weaknesses, they're all bringing their own unique, personal biases or traumas or triggers or whatever those things are. And I mean, untangling that and creating an environment of synergy where everybody's working together in a positive way. Before we get to the stuff that you're advocating on and stuff, do you have anybody who's in a situation like that might be listening to us where there might be some disharmony or there might be some rough waves? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear that, when it comes to suggestions?
Well, I used to start off with, I used to start sessions off, Mike. And part of this is kidding, but it used to put people in the right frame to sort of take a look around the room. I used to say to them right up front, I'd say, okay, there's like 20 of us in this room here today. I have to tell you, 1 in 5 of you is a sociopath. And usually, you get them looking at each other and going, well, it's not me. It's got to be him over there or her over there. And, but the reason for saying that was I was trying to tell them that often the motivations that people have are not driven at the outwardly and upfront. They're hidden. Motivations, people are driven by things that are hidden and they don't want you to know about them.
Yeah.
And if you're in kind of an unhealthy environment, you need to look deeper. You need to start to think through what it is that other person needs in order to move forward.
Right.
And that's the start of that, when you sort of explain to people, not everybody's motivation is on the up and up. Some of them are deliberate strategies for their own self-interest.
Right.
Yeah.
Ron, I mean, we didn't talk about any of this beforehand, so I'm just going to ask a dumb guy question, because that's what I am at the end of the day. I'm a dumb guy that just gets to talk to smart people. So here's my question: when it comes to motivations like that, is it important, or is it relevant to do some introspection work and say, okay, what is my motivation? What am I motivated for? Like, there's other people and what they're motivated for, and that's great, but is it important for me to know what motivates me?
Absolutely. One of the things I used to suggest to my clients and groups when I would do them is, if you're interested in finding out who you are, the Myers-Briggs personality test is a good start.
Yeah.
It'll take you down. And then if you take the results of that and you think through, okay, that's who Myers-Briggs thinks I am. How does that apply to how I interact with the world day to day? And then focus down and look at who you are. You can get a good sense of where you might want to go to be better than you are today. My whole focus over my career has been, today I'm not as good as I want to be tomorrow. If I just make a small shift and I'm a little bit better tomorrow, 10 years from now, it'll be a big change.
There's a book that I love called The Slight Edge, and the entire book basically uses all sorts of examples about little teeny tiny changes and the compound effect over time, how much difference that makes. And what you just said there rings true to that. I mean, you make one little change and you continue with that change, and another little change and another little change. Like you say, you won't recognize yourself.
Yeah, and I got to be really upfront here and tell you some truths about where I came from, how I developed. And so if you were to ask people going back in my career, 10 years into my career and tell us, and they would look at, and you would say, what about Ron? Like, who is he and what is he? What does he do and why does he do it? They would go, man, that guy can be brutal. That guy is so motivated and he's going there and nothing's going to stand in his way.
Yeah.
And over the years, as I started to think through, who I was and why I was that way, and did I want to stay that person, or did I want to be something different? And I'm going to say better in this case. I started to realize that I didn't like that person.
Wow.
And that led me on my own self journey of changing who I was. And part of that journey, I think, made me a better person, specifically related to empathy for others.
Yeah.
And to taking into consideration that decisions are not just about what my needs are, but how it affects everybody around me. And that's and I got to say, Mike, like, if I was going to say something to men for your channel, I would say, if you can just do a little bit of sitting down in a quiet corner once in a while and thinking through where you are today and the effect you're having on people around you, what you want to do tomorrow and the effect that you might want to have tomorrow, that would be the biggest single thing you could do. And if you do it on a kind of regular basis, I don't say you have to do it every day or every week. Yeah. But just self-reflection every once in a while.
Check in with yourself every once in a while.
That's right. And then closely look at the impact you're having on those around you and ask yourself, is that the impact I want to have?
Yes.
And how would I want to change that to impact those people in a better way?
God damn, Ron, I'm hearing you talk, and it's like we have these coaches and therapists and different guests on the podcast talking about how there's almost this crisis. And I mean, this is going to dovetail into what you're advocating for now. At the end of the day, you're advocating for substances and mental health right now. And I mean, what I'm about to say, though, is in my opinion, the reason that some people end up going down those paths that they go down is that you've got a guy who's in his late 30s or his early 40s, and these coaches talk about this, and it's happening all over the place. And the guy went by the, connected the dots that they were supposed to connect. They went to school, or they got a trade, they got married and had a couple kids, bought a house, got in their situation. Then they got to their 30s or 40s and they look around and they kind of pop their head up, whether they know it or they're not, or not, and realize they're in this crisis of not knowing who the hell they are, and having this like what you just said, checking in with yourself. I think a lot of guys don't check in with themselves because they have gotten themselves to that point and they're afraid of what the answer is. What do I want to do tomorrow? What are the things that I want to be tomorrow? I think they're scared of the answer because they've just painted by numbers up to this point. And when they really truly have that meeting with themselves, they may not want to face, that the answers to those questions. But at the end of the day, we know that ultimately that's where fulfillment comes from. It is asking those questions, but the fear and the chasm between those two places is vast.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Mike. And so, because we're talking about men's issues here, I want to focus a little bit on men because that's, I think we really, society, and I'm not just talking about the last 10 years, decade, or the last even 100 years. Yeah. We've done a tremendous disservice to men in general. And, part of it is driven because, us guys, we're driven by our testosterone.
Yep.
It's just who we are, and part of what
genetic programming, the reptilian brain, all of that stuff are things that we're contending with right now in this modern society.
That's right. And so it's not lost on me. I've sat around lots of tables in pubs drinking beer with guys, and it's the I'm the man, and don't get in front of me because I'm trouble. And that sadly that carries through in the rest of our life. So when we get down to our children and our wives and the people we love and all those other kind of things, it's like, don't bother me with emotions. I'm not there. Don't want to talk about emotions. I am who I am, and you got to take me that way.
Yep.
Well, I'm here to tell you that really doesn't really work for most of us. And frankly, when it comes to substance illness and mental health challenges, it's likely to lead you down a really dark path fairly quickly in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if I was going to say anything to men, like, you need to give some of that away and just like put it on the back burner somewhere and just sort of like start to ask yourself some real pointed questions. I'll give you an example. My wife and I were talking about the vaccination program around COVID today.
Yep.
And we started to talk about our past, and we went back to when we were, in elementary school, and we were getting polio shots, TB, smallpox and stuff like that. Yep. And my wife, she's a very intelligent lady and very smart. She said to me, yeah, girls, they always got a bad rap because they were the ones that would always react. When we were all standing in line, they were the ones that would faint and they would show the emotional, gee, I'm going to get that shot and I don't want it, and stuff like that. And I laughed at her and I said, you're absolutely right, honey. But the facts are all the guys were standing in the line and we were scared stiff.
100%.
Yeah.
I can vouch for that. Absolutely.
Yeah. But the difference was
Can't show it.
Nope. Got to be strong.
Yep.
And so, like, I'll take that damn injection and I'll wait till I get outside the bloody door before I fall over.
Yep.
Yeah. And I got to do it by myself. I can't do it in front of any of my friends.
No. Yeah. No. And that's a very, very good way. You see it in children. And again, that's where is it genetic? Is it all environmental? I don't know, but you see it as early as, in childhood, you see that. And I mean, not checking in. So at the end of the day, and when I said it's going to dovetail, it does, because at the end of the day, the people you're advocating for, and I mean, you're not just advocating for men, but you definitely have a lot of experience when it comes to this. And we can certainly attribute many of the people that you're advocating for as people who don't check in with themselves, and they go down different paths. And many times those paths go down routes that take them to sometimes destruction when it comes to mental health. And then, of course, the other one, they cope. And they cope by self-medicating, and those self-medication is different, all sorts of different substances. And I mean, that has become a massive part of your world over the last while here, from a personal standpoint. And you want to take it from a personal standpoint and go into a much broader standpoint because of what you learned personally. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement, Mike. And to be as forthright as I can be, I have people in my family that have both substance illness and mental health challenges, and for me, that's a personal journey, and that set me on this journey to sort of to see if I could not just help them and advocate for them, but also for others as well. And I also realized over the last few years that there wasn't a lot more I could do for some of my family members, but that didn't mean I wanted to give up on the idea of advocating. So I've broadened my concept of advocating, and I wanted to move advocating out for others, not just my own family members, because it just seemed important to do that.
That's really noble, and I appreciate anybody who's willing to take struggle and try and turn that into a solution for others. It's a beautiful sentiment of paying it forward, and I just appreciate that you're willing to do that. I want to talk a little bit about our society. And I mean, when I say our society, I'm talking about the Western world, and our viewpoint when it comes to drugs, and how much that is actually impeding helping people who have become compromised and a slave to these drugs. And it's almost like we're starting the race 30 yards behind everybody else because of stigmas that we as a society have attached to what drugs are. Safe to say you are in the camp when it comes to the war on drugs, that is not the most effective way that we as a society can deal with drugs.
Yeah, the war on drugs was a complete disaster, and it was a ridiculous concept. To criminalize the fact that somebody is taking a substance is just so destructive. Not just to the person. So if I take the American model, although the Canadian model followed fairly close, the American model ended up with literally hundreds of thousands of people being incarcerated in prisons for decades. Yeah, because they had a small bit of substance on their person that was declared as non grata material in the American society. Yeah. So I am not a proponent or fan of the concept that we should criminalize the use of drugs. Now I get, like, let's talk about reality. So like if I catch you with a boatload of heroin, 600 tons of it, yeah, you probably need to be in jail. Because you're not just taking some stuff for your own use. Yeah. Your intent is to destroy the lives of many people, right? Yeah. And profit off of it. Yeah, but if it, we're talking about personal use, we just need to give up the idea that it should be a criminal event. And in fact, I go a step further, and I would say we really need to get to the point where we have safe drug supply, because the overdose deaths that are occurring today is because of the toxicity of the drugs that are out there. Yeah. And so if we know that a person has an addiction to a substance and they have to take it, then why would we force them into taking a poison? Yes. So the point here is that we need to get to a point where not only are we having places where people can have safe injection, harm reduction for people who are using substances, but they actually have a safe supply, much like the Portugal models and a few other countries in the world where where they have stepped through this door and said, we get this. We know that these people have this condition, and we need to support them until they can make the step where they can leave it behind.
Well, and I mean, it's, you are the third member of Mom Stop the Harm that we've had in the last 6 weeks on the podcast. And as when the cameras are off and we're talking to different people and whatnot, somebody asked me, well, why is that the case? And I mean, we just need to look at the stats. The reason that we're focusing on this a little bit consistently in heCast is because the stats are staggering when it comes to men and substances.
Yeah, and so let's talk about those stats, because they represent real people. They represent fathers, sons, uncles. And I'm because this is a
professionals. It's not just dudes on the street.
Yeah, no, it's professionals. It's blue collar people. It's hardworking people that function every day. I explained this to a person recently. They said, well, it's just those guys out on the street. They're homeless. And, if we just dealt with those people, it would all be fixed. And I laughed at them and I said, no. Sadly, 70% of the overdose deaths that are occurring in this province every month are people that are in single family residences. And
70.
and 70% of those are men. And so all of a sudden, that changes the dynamics. You start to think about that. And so what you're saying is people who are dying are not dying out on the street.
Yeah.
They're dying in their home, in their back workshop, or in their basement rec room, because they decided that they should use a loan. And most of those people that are making that decision are men.
Yeah.
And then you start to ask yourself, well, why? Why is it men? Well, it has to do with our gender. It has to do with our testosterone. It has to do with our genetics.
Yeah.
It has to do with all of that stuff that makes us men, which is, I am strong. I am invincible. Don't tell me shit.
Yep.
I'm going to do what I'm going to do.
Yep.
And I don't need any help. And so I'm going to my rec room, going to sit in my recliner. I'm going to do my drugs this evening. And I'll chill out while the wife and kids are upstairs watching TV.
Yeah.
And then around 10 o'clock in the evening, the wife comes down to check on you and finds you're dead. And
that is a story that is happening a lot. And it's a story that's not being publicized like it's happening a lot. It's this silent, there's so many, I look at the discovery that the HeChangedIt team has gone on. And it's just crazy how many silent things there are. Yeah. How many sufferings that men have in silence. And I mean, the phrase that keeps coming up is that many times men put themselves into their own silo. And in that silo, that's the only place, it's separated from everybody else. It's separated and they're like a ticking time bomb. And something has got to give at some point in some sort of behavior, in some sort of a reaction, like what you're saying. Something's got to give at some point.
Yeah, Mike. And so, I would say like most males, most men, we tend to be fairly, we don't get down to the nitty gritty between each other. We stay at a very superficial level.
Yeah.
And Frank, like a normal relationship with a guy is, we can be great friends and stuff like that, but we don't share in depth who we are and the pain that's deep down.
No.
And that's what drives us to be alone in that room, taking something that makes the pain go away.
It's an escape. It's a temporary escape.
Yeah. And, so if we could shift back and go back maybe 10,000 years ago, we quite happily go out and kill a few animals and bring them home to the cave.
Yeah.
And all the stress of life would be, solved.
You'd get that shit out.
Yeah, you get exactly. But that's not modern man today.
No.
Modern man, everything around modern man pushes us to not demonstrate, that aggressiveness that that comes by nature.
Yeah.
It pushes us down into this little block that is at times just wants to explode.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about addiction for a second, because a great many people who end up with addictions, it's driven by trauma that they experienced somewhere in their past life.
Okay.
And for men, that's particularly crucial and critical, because men are not able readily to get that trauma out.
Right.
Let it go. And so when you start talking to people that have addictions, and I'm not just talking about substance addictions here. So, there's a lot of addictions out there, everything from cigarettes to alcohol to porn to gambling to shopping, et cetera, but for some reason we took some of those and we said, well, that addiction is okay, but this one over here, that needs to be a crime.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do this addiction, you need to keep it secret, because otherwise you're going to jail.
Yeah.
Right. So now mirror that on top of what we just talked about, where addiction is driven by usually trauma that a guy, in this case, because we're talking about Ben, can't get released.
Right.
And you set that man up for overdosing, killing himself, because he just has no other way to get rid of the pain.
Right.
Yeah. And so what I want to say to men out here who may be using substances and they use it alone, I know that it's driven by pain. Something in your life has caused pain or suffering that you just want to escape from. And usually it's driven from something in your early childhood, but it could be as simple as the relationship you're in today. Yes. You just can't face the pain of the relationship or your children or your finances or the fact that you just don't have a job that you make enough money at to support your lifestyle. Yeah. All these things contribute to I just need to get away from it for a little bit of time. Yeah. And I'm not against the idea of getting away from it from a little bit of time, but I am telling men, don't do it by yourself. Don't put yourself in a position where there's nobody there in case you overdose. Yeah. So there's a lot of things you can do. For instance, British Columbia has the Lifeguard app, which you can have on your phone. Yes. And if you use that Lifeguard app and you want to use by yourself, the Lifeguard app will protect your life in the event that you overdose. Someone will come to rescue you. Yeah. So you don't have to tell your wife or your mom or your kids. You could still retain your anonymous sort of, but still protect your life. Because the thing I want to point out is every single one of us is unique and we're important. And I say that not just because it's me that is important, but for all the people that love us. Yes. And so the worst scenario, I want to emphasize this. 6 people a day die in British Columbia from overdoses. Man. Now, I want people to really think about that for a second or two, because 6 people, you say, oh, well, 6 people, that seems like a lot. But then again, 6 people. But now multiply that just by their core family by 4. And now we're talking about 24 people that are directly affected by those deaths. Now,
and that's a small number for, you think about that. You think about how many people we actually do impact, and people who are in this situation, they don't realize how many people in their life that their existence does impact. It's a hell of a lot more than 4 for most people. And I mean, so the echoes of those 6 people every single day, they run wide.
Yeah. And so, Mike, you're right on the money, because you're going exactly where I was going to take us, which is, our core family might be our wife and maybe 2 children,
Yeah.
or 3 children. That's the 4 people I'm talking about, and plus yourself, because of course, you don't care because you're going to be dead.
Right.
But now multiply it between the uncles, the aunts, the grandmas, the grandpas, et cetera, et cetera. I would venture to say that the average person who passes away from overdose deaths has an impact on more than 100 lives.
Yep.
And so now take that 6 people and multiply it by that 100.
Yep.
And you look at, 600 people a day are being impacted because we lost somebody.
Yeah.
That's horrible. It's horrendous. And these lives are changed not in the moment, they're changed forever after.
Yes.
So, addiction is a horrible thing. Substance illness is a horrible thing. But
stigmas attached to it are horrible things too, Ron.
Yeah, stigma, and we can talk about that too. Stigma is a horrible thing as well. But to die because you were a man and you thought you needed to be by yourself and you couldn't share, is a horrible calamity. So,
well, and it's an evolution to get to that place. It's an evolution of I didn't share in high school because that's the locker room. We didn't do that. You're not tough to do that. I didn't share, that I made mistakes in my life, and now I feel like I've gone too far down that path. Then it's like, okay, I didn't share that. That led me to do substances. Like it became the break in the chain has to be. We've got to create a culture where we're open to sharing this kind of shit.
That's right. And part of that is society. Part of it is our government needs to step up to this so that we recognize this as a health issue, not a criminal issue.
Yep.
So it should be no different than, if I said to you, Michael, oh, gee, I heard you're a diabetic, well, that must be horrible. And you go, yeah, it's been, it's a bit of a challenge, so when you have diabetes, this is what happens. And you readily share that because it's a health concern.
Definitely.
Right? So we need to get to a place where addiction, substance illness, stuff like that has the same openness to it, that people can readily share and say, I'm having a problem. I freely admit that things are not going well for me.
Well, and I'm going to submit to you, Ron, that it's substances, but it's also, I talk about the diabetes or diabetes, as Wilford Brimley would have said, that's one thing. But what if it's depression? What if it's another mental illness of some sort? What if I'm bipolar, for God's sakes? Like, I mean, I don't talk about that with that openness of diabetes either. Like when it's a physical ailment, I broke my arm. Hey, come sign my cast. When I might have borderline personality disorder, I don't tell anybody that shit.
Yeah.
So it's all mental illness has that same stigma too.
Let's talk about mental illness so I'm glad you brought it up because, that's the other half of the stuff that I advocate on is mental health challenges. So, 1 in 5 people will experience a mental health problem in this year.
Yep.
Now, when I say that tells you right off the bat in 5-year period, that means every one of us has had a mental illness challenge.
There you go.
Yeah. So what we're really saying then is mental health affects every last single individual human being in Canada.
Yep.
Okay. And so today I might be fine. I seem pretty happy on this podcast with you. And, but tomorrow I could be depressed as hell. And, and so we kind of readily accept the concept of, Joe over there, he gets kind of panic attacks once in a while. Or, I saw George and George, he's always kind of down.
Yeah.
So depression and anxiety are, they're the kind of readily accepted ones. But when we move into bipolar or God forbid, schizophrenia or paranoia type mental health challenges, all of a sudden, all bets are off. Yep. And people don't want to talk about those things. And if you happen to demonstrate any of those behaviors, you're going to see the rats head for the hills.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I agree with you, Mike. It's crucial that we begin to reduce the stigma attached to mental illness. And that goes to the situation we have in our society today. When we look out, we walk on the streets of any Canadian city or town, we will still see people out there that are homeless. A lot of the prevailing attitude is they must be there because they did something wrong. And that's a complete untruth.
Yeah.
Nobody ever has said, I want to be homeless.
No.
I'm going to go and be homeless tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on top of that, there isn't a person with a serious mental, when I say here serious, I'm talking about schizophrenia or bipolar, some of the really bad mental illness that said, yeah, I'm really looking forward to my schizophrenia tomorrow because I'm going to control it and, I'll take a couple pills. I
can't wait for my next episode. It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. It doesn't work that way,
No.
So we need to get everybody in our towns and cities to sit back and say, there for the grace of God goes me.
Yeah.
And I need to be empathetic towards these people because their life is tremendously challenging.
Yeah.
And each and every one of us can help. All you got to do is walk by. And frankly, the simplest thing you can do if you're on the street and you're seeing people that have mental, you've probably experienced them, Mike. You walk down the street, and you see this guy, he's pushing a buggy and, everything in the buggy is everything he owns.
Yeah.
And he's talking to himself. And not only is he talking to himself, but he's talking to himself about stuff that just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yep.
And that's your quintessential schizophrenic person, right? But for us, the simplest thing we could do is give him a smile and acknowledge him. Acknowledge that he's a human being and we're present with him.
Yeah.
That's where it starts to know and just let them know that we know they're there. Yeah. And they're people just like us. Because frankly, deep inside, they started off as a child. They started, I was, I'm going to get back to my own personal life. I have people in my life and I watched them being born, carried them in my arms. Yeah. I watched them, grow up as little children and they were, sunshine was in their eyes every single moment of their childhood. And today, because of their mental health challenges, they're just not the same person. But I remember every single day of what they were like as children. Mm-hmm. And every one of us as adults, when we look at other adults out in the street, we have to remember they are someone's child. We all start off from the same place. And it's behovement on us to help every single person out there along the journey, not make it harder for them. That's what anti-stigma is. Anti-stigma is let's not make it harder for them. It's bad enough; it's hard enough for them already. So, I rarely am at a loss for words as you were bringing up that analogy so beautifully, I might add. I thought about the most precious member of my family right now and how much joy she's bringing me and those things. And I mean, when you put that lens over that the person that you're looking at on the street was that or is that for somebody, that changes, that reframes it in such a beautiful way. And then that empathy floods in. Ron, I told you the time is slippery, and it is. These things go fast, and I can't wait for our next conversation. I'm really grateful that we were connected. I feel a kinship already. What you just said is a tremendous learning moment, and
you're full of them. You're one of those guys that I appreciate so much because you see the value of knowledge transfer, and you got a lot of knowledge and you want to help transfer it, and you're doing it proactively in many, many, many ways. I would even submit that you may not have the corporate gig that you had anymore, but you probably can be as busy as you want to be with what you're doing in your life right now. I want to provide opportunity for people to take a look at some of these things that you're teaching from this unique standpoint of a life that you've built, and with the skill set that you've built. Talk about learning moments and how people can find them.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for reminding me to bring that up. Learning moments was a concept that I came up with about almost 2 years ago, and it was driven out of the fact that when I was discussing or talking with people and looking for information regarding substance illness or mental health challenges, that all of the information I could find on the internet or through technical books or books of any sort was all couched primarily in medical terminology and technical terms.
Yeah, it's hard to understand that stuff. It's a little thick, a lot of it.
Oh my gosh. It was just, you have to become a professor with 4 different master degrees to sort of weed your way through some of the research and other stuff associated to these. So I wanted to begin a knowledge exchange of ideas around substance illness and mental health that concentrated on delivering short articles. Most of the articles are 1,000 words or less.
Yep.
I call them learning moments, and they're all written in lay language, language that the common person can understand, and often with my quirky sense of humor built into each and every article. I have partners, which that also write and contribute to learning moments. So it's not just me. And then the important part is a typical learning moment article will take a subject like maybe a drug like meth. Yeah. And we'll try and explain it so that the average person can understand what meth is, the effect it has on people, and why it's so addictive. Right. And we'll do it in language that all of us can basically understand. Now, the real important part is because, some articles and learning moments are what we call opinion pieces. And that would be from my lived experience. And I will just tell you, I will write an article and say, hey, this is what I think about this particular subject. Right. And I'll clearly say it's an opinion piece. Yes. But most learning moment articles are backed up by research, and you'll find the references to the actual scientific articles at the bottom of every learning moment article.
That is super, super cool. And needed, and very generous, by the way, of you and your partners able to do this. I know you guys do it for free, and I know people can share it. All you care about is making sure that you're cited, which makes sense, as you've cited material that's in your in the learning moments. What's the best way for people to find learning moments?
Yeah, I gave you the link, and I'm hoping you can share that link. And I'll tell you the link, what it is. Yeah. So it's PTALB, which stands for Port Alberni. Yeah. CAT, which stands for Community Action Team. Yeah. .blogspot.com. So
cool. Say it all. Now that you've explained it, say it all one more time.
Yeah, I'll just say it out. So it's PTALBCAT.blogspot.com.
Very, very, very cool. And as we finish up here, let's plug Mom Stop the Harm. It's momstoptheharm.com, right?
Yes. And Mom Stop the Harm is one of probably the most important and best organizations right now in Canada that is helping to advocate for substance illness.
And the reforms that need to happen to make this. My whole motto in life, Ron, is don't focus on the problem, focus on the solution. And right now, I look at Mom Stop the Harm, and they are 100% focusing on the solution and how to make things easier for people going through what they're going through, but also to create a structure around us to help people go through what they're going through.
Yeah, and Mom Stop the Harm, by the way, also has two different support models going on. So there's support groups out there. In fact, yours truly is a facilitator of the one here in Port Alberni. It's called Holding Hope. Holding Hope Port Alberni. So Mom Stop the Harm has two support models. One for people who have experienced a loss and they're grieving. Mm-hmm. So you can join a support group if you've lost a loved one. Yep. And then the other one is for those of us who still have people that are struggling with substance illness. Yep. And that's why it's called Holding Hope, because as long as there's breath, there's hope. So
as you say that, I know that sentence has a real exclamation point ending for you. And I just want to throw my energy out to you and to your loved ones as well. And to all of the ones who we are still holding hope for, that some of the things that need to happen for them to make decisions and be facilitated in pulling back from the brink of where they're at happen. And I just want to send that to you personally, man. I appreciate you. I'm sending lots of love to you, and empathy for you, and admiration that you are able to be as forthcoming as you are while going through this shit. And I just want to say thank you so much for being a light in this world, particularly in this section of the world where people are finding a lot of darkness. Thank you for being a light, Ron. I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you.
Thank you, Mike. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for your support and the feelings that you're expressing. So I have to say, Mike, if there's anything I can do and help you, partnershiping is what I'm about. And so looking forward in the future, maybe we can talk about other stuff related to men's issues, because I've, over my life, I've got lots of stuff that I can talk about. That
okay. Careful what you wish for. The HeChangedIt team is going to be reaching out, man. That's fantastic. Okay. We're building something here where we can all get together and we can all do this and be there for each other. I just am so grateful that you're willing to do that. Thank you so much. You'll come back on again. We're going to keep going down the layers of that onion.
Yep, absolutely. We can talk about all kinds of things.
Ron Merk, thank you so much, man. I just so grateful. These things go by so quick every single time. I know I'm a broken record. For those of you who listen to HeChangedIt, there are certain things that I kind of hit every single podcast. It's not because it's rhetoric. It's because it's true. I can't believe how damn fast these things go. And it's just because it's all real. I just appreciate so much these conversations that we have here on HeCast. Again, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Please share the podcast, whether you're seeing it on YouTube and the Apple Store, or on Spotify, wherever that is. If you wouldn't mind doing that, please feel free to check out the content of not just Ron, but all of our guests. And again, if you haven't downloaded HeChangedIt yet, what are you waiting for? Get that app on your phone, on your device. Let's make this thing happen. Let's grow this thing. Let's change the world together. That has been another episode of HeCast, the official podcast of HeChangedIt. My name is Mike Chisholm. Go change something.